All right. Hopefully this recording is starting okay. Hello everyone, MrHappy here, and welcome to Mondays with MrHappy, aka MrHappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Two things. One, beard's gone, tried to trim it, didn't come out the way I wanted, got rid of the whole thing. It'll be back in a couple of weeks. At least it'll be more than just stubble in a couple of weeks. Second, in case you're wondering why this is such a ghetto episode, the microphone sucks, the video sucks, it's because I am currently in Toronto. I'm attending a convention called KupoCon, which is something that just started up last year. I believe the first one, actually earlier this year, the first one was in January. And I went to that one. That one was in Newark, New Jersey. And now I'm in Canada. My first time traveling internationally. Wasn't as bad as I guess I initially anticipated it possibly being. So I decided that I'm going to record this as kind of like one straight recording, because if I don't, it's not going to get done for a while. Even still, the thumbnail is going to look like crap if we try to do it right now, so I might find like a stock image or something to use as a thumbnail, at least until I can get home and actually change the thumbnail. But luckily we don't have too many questions this week, so I'm actually grateful for that for once. So I'm just going to make this as short as possible because I have dinner in 22 minutes, I believe. So I'm just going to get right into it since I'm on a bit of a schedule. Sorry. I do have the sponsor list, by the way. Actually, I guess I could do that first, since that way I don't risk, like, I don't know, I guess window capturing it. So for those of you who don't know, we have a sponsor list for Mondays with MrHappy now, as well as State of the Realm. Basically, to counter hashtag demonetize, I opened up Patreon as an option to make sure I never need to withhold content, because I do this for a living. I never need to withhold content due to demonetization and waiting for the approval process. So you have these sponsors to thank for me not needing to ever do that, and I'm grateful to them. A few new names. Hopefully, I got all of the new names here. But we have a new one here. Cheesecake from Leviathan. These are our standard sponsors. This is the most basic tier, the $5 tier. We have Cheesecake from Leviathan, Sploda, That Lame Weeb, Ashen Emiya of Cerberus, MrSynestrrr, Argoti, Fafarian, Rendil, Giraffeswillrule, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. Moving up into the elite tier, which is the next tier above that, we have Eadric, Red Steel on Exodus. Hopefully I got that right. Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru and the Rivivus Free Company from Zodiark. We have Marsh-Techie. We have Ellisan Le'ore from Balmung, Sour Cream and Chives from Genova, Valestra of Famfrit. Actually, Valestra upgraded, I believe, to the next tier, so I'll say you again when I go to the premium. Kurioshi and the Reckless Tea Party on Cactar, Ignis Fairgun from the Diablo server, Goisha Valfer of Serren, Jean-Francois the Macho Lewis, Hersh Fersh of Faerie, Phoenix Down for Company, Serren from Zodiark, and Rynoet Chikara. Then we move up to the premium. Like I said, I believe Valestra of Famfrit, I believe you upgraded to premium, so thank you for your increased support of the channel. So we have Valestra of Famfrit, we have Noct Cordis from Excalibro, I'm assuming that wasn't a typo when I read it, Krovos Moonscar, Nakoneami of Balmung, Ira and Avon Blanc Free Company on Zodiark, Johnny Odin of Tomberry, Private Mikey, Aqua Sacrifice, Obai Dal Shamsi, Spike, Nadi and Kurasame, Rudy Rudiger, TinColossus, Khuja Cross with the Genova server, Ahmed Kurenai, Oni Abdullah, Killer Hackman, Raul Jr, Dark Lechie 013, Arthur Reveal Gaming Bishop, and Kiltastic Jones. I won't get into any updates of stuff we're doing to this because I need to get back to the States before I work on sending things out. I will say this, though. Expect a message on Monday or Tuesday asking those people who want the next mug, and people can have the option to decline it. If you don't decline it, I'm going to assume that you want another mug. So please message me. And if you've sent me a message in the past about the mug, please still respond to the next one. I will go through the old messages, but it'll be a lot easier to keep track of. Anyway, let me get this set up so I can do this all in one take. Actually, this should work just fine for one take. Yes. Okay. So let's get the forms. Oh, look at that nice little transition right there. That was very nice looking. All right, so the first question from the Dream Network forums. Hey, Haps, a non-gaming related question this week. So this November I decided on No Shave November, and my beard is the longest it's ever been. I discovered an arguably hilarious phenomenon, bed beard. Yeah, I get bed beard. So I hate, that's the one thing I hate about having a big beard, is you end up, I don't so much mind bed beard, which is a thing, but it's more so that when you go to sleep, I sleep on my side. I don't sleep on the back, on my back. So when I put my face against a pillow, the beard kind of scratches back against me. So yeah, I'm very familiar with bed beard, and it is not a comfortable thing at all. So yeah. I am very aware of it, though. Have a good one and a lovely day, you too. These are probably going to be messed up in terms of the way they actually look, because I'm just working on one monitor here, so excuse me if the question's not entirely readable. Anyway, the next one. Hey, Haps, just listen to the Last day of the realm, your thoughts on Rival Wings cannons. I thought that maybe you could adjust so it does the same damage to mechs but little to none to players. That way the players have to have that feeling of contributing by being on cannon duty. I'm wondering, the only concern that I'm sure that Square Enix had in terms of balance for that is that if you take the cannon's abilities away to actually execute the players, yes, you could say that the players would be contributing more, which was one of the major concerns I had with Rival Wings, is that it felt like individual players' contributions outside of being in a mech or a cannon was limited. I feel like you end up in that situation where players can just run past the defending players and land hits on the core until they win. Because if you're defending, there's only so much you can really do against players if you don't have the cannons to actually stop them. If 24 players try to run through and just hit the core, there isn't so much you could do without either a good coordination of the mechs that you have remaining or, in our current case, cannons. So that's the only concern that I have. But I do think that ways to deliberately counteract the cannons outside of killing the players on the cannons, which is the current counterplay there, might be a better option. It's tough because I feel like if you take away the cannon power or if you make it so you can disable the cannons, the game ends quickly. But it also feels like it's another thing for people who don't really understand the mode already that they need to know and understand. And I think that leads to its own set of problems. So it's a delicate situation. But unfortunately, it's kind of how I envision the situation going, or at least how I envision that the team probably considered it when giving the cannons that much power. So on to reply number 3, or question number 3. What's up, Happy? Finger guns. How's it hanging? How you doing? You doing all right? Yeah, you doing all right. I've done an animal weapon and a relic in anticipation for 4.2 and the Eureka shenanigans. My question first is, when do you suspect we'll get new information about 4.2? So this was probably asked prior to us finding out when the next live letter is. In fact, yeah, it was. This was asked on the 27th. I think we found out a few days later. We'll be finding out more about Eureka, or at least more about 4.2 on December 15th at 3 a.m. Pacific. That is when the next live letter from the producer will be happening. How much we'll hear about Eureka there? Couldn't say, but at the very least, that's when the next live letter is. Your second question is about Samurai. My friend parses me all the time because I like to keep opener and rotation fresh in my head. I average around 4,700. My question is about whether that is good for a casual player like myself. My nose is starting to itch, which you guys have to know happens all the time. What is the maximum the Weeb Knight can achieve? So I haven't been keeping up with what maximum numbers are, but 4,700, listen. I've cleared 04 Savage with a Samurai that was doing like 2,500. So if you're doing 4,700 on the dummy, that's good. What matters more is translating effective DPS into an actual fight. I think a lot of people kind of overplay how much they do on a dummy. It's a good number to look for, and if you can't do it on a dummy, that means that you stand no chance of doing it in an actual fight. But I would worry more about applying that kind of DPS, which, by the way, will probably go up in a group because you'll probably be taking it more seriously with like potions, food, having group buffs and stuff like that. So it starts to play a little bit more into. You probably see a higher number if you were performing adequately in like 01 Savage, but it's good. Your number is good on dummies. What it could be at its maximum, I couldn't tell you. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can tell you that at least 4,700 is better than a vast majority of players that I've had through the Party Finder for things like 01 through 3 weekly, back when I used to pug 01, 2, and 3 every week. All right, let's see what we got here. I can scroll down to the next one. All right, well, I kind of got it. Let's see. Hey, Haps, again, apologies for the Viv quote last week. I mean, do you really mean it? Are you really sorry? I don't know that you're actually sorry. All right, so the toy we aren't allowed to play with, even I don't know about this one, out of pure interest. I think I'm going to go with out of pure interest, because now I, out of pure interest, would like to click in. Was there a big AAA game release that disappointed you so hard that you hate it? After playing it, I guess the closest one, and I don't really hate it, is Destiny. I say that because Destiny, I wanted it to be so much more, but when it launched, it wasn't those things. I respect what happened to Destiny 1 over the course of its development, when eventually, they released an expansion that was only on the PS4 and Xbox One. The quality and the number of activities was so high up there. It very much reminds me of an expansion for Final Fantasy XIV, where we get the story, we get some endgame, a little bit to do at max level when it first comes out, and then they kind of trickle feed us content. And then by the time you get to the end of an expansion, it feels like you have this huge number of things you could have done or could be working on. To be fair, those things don't go away when 14 releases a new expansion. With Destiny 2, it pretty much removed everything that was Destiny 1 from the equation. That being said, it feels that way at times. Like most of the time I've already done those things when they were out prior. People who haven't may have extra things to do. But I feel that Destiny 1 in its prime kind of made up for the way I felt about it. It showed me that Bungie could do the right thing and they could develop certain things, but the way that the game is kind of trickle-fed, and then Destiny 2 doesn't just invalidate the old content, it removes it from the equation since it's a completely different game. I'd say that it's probably the Destiny series when they first launch, that when they're at their weakest, that I don't like. I wouldn't say I hate it, but it's definitely not a business practice that I am a big fan of. And it's kind of weird because then you can talk about how like 15 has all the DLCs and it's a different story for me because I played 15 like so much when it first came out and I did enjoy it even with its flaws. That's a long conversation that unfortunately I only have 13 minutes before dinner. So number 5, I think there's only like 9 questions total. So number 5, hiya, happy man. Hey, what's going on? What's the point of party buffs only buffing either physical or magical? Abilities like Red Mage's Embolden or Monk's Brotherhood only buff the party's physical damage, which seems to needlessly punish parties with casters. So I've brought this point up a lot, where it feels like the jobs where they gave buffs, so jobs that have buffs for everyone are generally the jobs that are more valuable. When you look at Bard, it provides a crit buff to everybody. When you look at Machinist, Hypercharge is no longer physical and magical. It's just, it's just Hypercharge. Ninja's Trick Attack is all damage sources. And then when you start getting into specific damage types, whether it's the slashing debuff or it's just physical versus magical, things start getting a little strange because you kind of need a certain number of jobs for those things to play out as you may intend for them to. But it feels like the jobs that have all around DPS tools are the jobs that become the most valued by the community. And it was, even just looking defensively, the fact that Paladin couldn't block magic before is one of the big reasons why people criticized the job so heavily. And a lot of people said if they could just block magic, it wouldn't be as bad. Maybe they don't need to be the job that does that much DPS. Now that they can do it, it's like, well, then you still have Dark Mind, which is this magic only cooldown, and it kind of goes the same way, or it's the same discussion. So I do feel that it's not that it limits their potential utility, it's that they want those jobs to stand out as something that is good in a specific situation. RPGs are a lot about that. It's about, coming up with an idea or coming up with a concept or a composition that, the jobs complement each other. And so if you have everything that just does everything to all damage, you start to reach a level of homogenization where it's like, well, why play any job over another job? It's literally becomes just for the way the job plays, which I don't think is necessarily bad, but from an RPG standpoint is far less interesting. When it comes to the actual practicality of the way our community in particular responds to jobs that aren't universally great, there's a lot of hyperbole. There's people who they take a concept or an idea, or they take a community opinion and they hyperbolize it to the point where they will talk down to people who play the jobs that aren't the ones that are universally accepted. And I think that's the one major thing that comes out of, I guess, modern gamers. It's not even 14. It's kind of just like you see it in Destiny, you see it in WoW, you see it in any game that involves people playing together. There's always those that hyperbolize the amount that job choice and the utility actually matters. And we see it a lot in 14, where there could be barely any difference between the two, but a job gets criticized to all hell. I do think that when you have situations like with Dark Knight or I guess with old school Monk or even current Samurai, where it's just they're so very clearly outclassed that it's a little bit more okay to talk about. But then you have Dark Knight beating Ultimate, where if I were to compare Dark Knight to the other tanks on almost every level, there's only like 1 or 2 things that really stand out to me as like Dark Knight specializing in. But what? Those 1 or 2 things were hyper valuable in Ultimate. So do you change Dark Knight because the other things don't feel okay? It's a really tough scenario that any developer who's trying to balance a game has to deal with this constantly. And the community always gets tired of hearing about it constantly. And then when they do make changes, and everything is, and then another job's brought up, then some other job probably falls down or becomes like maybe slightly weaker. I wish we could somehow achieve the balance that 3 healers have right now, which feels very good, but I don't think it's something that's feasible for every role in the game. Not without homogenizing a little bit more. But I do think that they need to maybe start considering looking at more interesting ways to make jobs stand out, as opposed to specifically offering physical versus specifically offering magical buffs. And I think that's something that we might see, not in this expansion, but maybe in the next one. So number 6, hey, Mr. Happy, Final Sim here, and welcome to my Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a week Q&A show where we ask questions and you answer them. One, for the love of God, I can't find a guide anywhere where to get the highest gear for my level 70 goldsmith. Look up Ash 10. I believe I said that last week also. Ash 10 has guides on gearing and where to get stuff. He crafts most of his own gear, although I'm sure scripts are the other option. So Ash 10. 2, what do I gain if I turn one of my crafters into a specialist? So that's actually something I can answer. It's something I can answer based on my knowledge from specialists when they first came out. I don't know the degree to which specialist is actually useful nowadays. So consider this a half. Ash 10 would once again have a better question for this. I don't really have good answers for crafting and gathering stuff. To my knowledge, and which is probably not recent knowledge, and therefore I would not take this as an actual knowledgeable answer, is that Specialist has its own skills that used to not be super valuable. I don't know if they've been buffed to the point where they are considered more useful. And it was supposed to originally create basically a way for people to approach crafting without needing to level every crafter. From what I understand, you still have to if you really, really care about crafting, you still level every crafter anyway. And it's also not as bad as it used to be. There are, and I'll say were and or are recipes that are Specialist exclusive. They generally lose their Specialist exclusive tag like a patch later. But I don't know the degree to which specialist-only recipes exist in the game nowadays. Like I said, I don't do crafting or gathering, and Ash 10 is definitely the more reputable source for any and all crafting questions. So that would be where my #1 recommendation goes. If anyone's watching this and they want something crafting or gathering, he is the good source for that. I am not. I just don't mess around with it at all. Okay, number 7. Yo, what's up, Happy? First time asking a question, but I can't think of anything you're already a part of the Lala Master Race. My question is, why do some DPS think it's cool to pull before the tank? Don't they know some tanks will let them die? As of right now, I've leveled Paladin, Dark Knight, and I've let most DPS die due to pulling content before me. Think I can count. So why would some do it? I can tell you that as a monk, sometimes it comes down to trying to keep stacks. But it is considered a rude gesture, and it's one I've taken part of because I'm a monk and like the idea of keeping stacks. But I generally try to limit it to when I know the tank I'm playing with. When I play with random tanks, random healers, doesn't matter. If I'm just playing with people I don't know, I kind of always just assume that I should just take the bottom line. Like if I'm a healer, I don't start DPSing until I see how proficient my tank is, or how proficient the other DPS are at AoEing. You know, I always go in with the intention of playing a certain way, but I'm very willing to adjust that. If I'm playing with a completely random tank, even as a monk, I probably won't shoulder tackle in to try and keep my stacks. If I know the tank, though, 100% I'll do it. So it comes down to that. A lot of the time, it's to keep uptime on buffs that that wear off. For me, in particular, it's Greased Lightning stacks. For a Dragoon, it could be Blood of the Dragon, which isn't that big a deal because it comes back super fast. But that's the only reason I can think of. There's really no other reason to do it outside of being impatient. So that's it. I guess that's the answer. I don't really think there's any more elaboration that's needed. But I do think if you're playing with random people, it is rude. It's something that I wouldn't recommend to people doing. I joke around about it, but I wouldn't recommend you do it with completely random groups. So number 8, hey, Happy. Hey. Thanks for the kick in the pants last week about jumping into raiding. I've been trying to grow my confidence to do my first raid one of these days. Anyway, I have a few questions that actually involve the original release of 1.0 and your experiences from it. From watching your alt playthrough from patch 2.45 on, I recall you mentioned you were one of the first people to stick with 14. So I wouldn't say I stuck with it. I downloaded it, I played it for 2 months, I got a max level character, and then I stopped. I didn't play it again until Zamiel Darkhold and Ifrit Hard Mode came out way later. And then I stopped playing again before Garuda came out, and I didn't come back again until 1.23, and even then I didn't stay around very long. You're one of the first people. So would you mind describing your experience as 1.0? My experience was regret. The only reason I don't regret that time is because I got the legacy status later on, but it was entirely different. Like, I was so happy with the modernization of 2.0 because 1.0 tried to be something not WoW and not Final Fantasy 11 while still having the familiarity of Final Fantasy 11 to draw in the 11 subscribers to play 14 because 11 was on the decline. So the transition to 2.0 as someone who's played a ton of modern MMOs, it was an easy one, and it was one that I was a fan of. I knew people were going to complain about it, but going from the clunky and unresponsive controls of 1.0 to the smooth and very responsive controls of 2.0, and also knowing that this game had such a history. It was also just the fact that A Realm Reborn was one of the most monumental gaming tasks and projects that's ever been taken on. I say that with pretty great confidence, that not many other people have had a complete failure of a title and actually saved it in such a way that not only are they making money now, but they are continuing with strong momentum. That, to me, that story alone made the transition from 1.0 to 2.0 just that much more interesting and entertaining. It's just... it fascinates me that they managed to make it transition. I do think it was a little weird that 2.0 didn't just start over from where 1.0 is, and they actually made a story reason in 1.0 for why 2.0 existed. It's just I find that interesting. They didn't start in a whole new dimension. They just started 5 years. It's basically 5 years after the events of the end of 1.0. And I thought that was a good idea. It made my time as a person who played 1.0 feel more impactful towards 2.0, even though I wouldn't say I actually impacted it in any way outside of purchasing it and paying enough subs to get legacy status. So I don't know if that's an adequate answer, but those are some of the emotions or some of the feelings I had towards 1.0 transitioning into 2.0. And the final question is, hey, Haps, first off, I want to thank you for answering my question last week and regarding my static. It helped with my decision, but now on to the question. I have two. After watching State of the Realm, I heard you might gear up your ninja again, main nin again. So I think the idea for me at this point, I got to do Monk, and I think Monk for my Savage tiers is something I'm going to stick with. But Ultimate this tier, being a Monk is not like I'm detrimental to the groups, but I'm having a hard time finding a group as the non-ninja melee DPS. Most of the groups I know have a non-ninja melee DPS. It could be Monk, it could be Dragoon, but it could be Samurai, but I think I actually know any that have a Samurai. But almost all of them are looking for ninjas. And it comes down to it, I want to do Ultimate. And, I basically didn't get to do Ultimate because I'm a Monk. And it's not because Monk's bad, it's just because all the groups that I were looking for, they all needed ninjas. And it was always like, well, I can't just go level ninja and be max geared. Like, that's not something I have. So the goal is in 4.2 is to rate it as Monk, get best in slot as Monk. But also be collecting the ninja gear along the way. Make sure to keep collecting it. So in the case that 4.3 Ultimate, I once again can't find a group as a Monk, I at least have a second option. I don't want to main ninja again. I'd at least like to complete Savage on it, and I need to get practiced on it. But Monk is where my heart is. And I see 11 you have a Tara, and 14 you're a Lala. Did you do it more for community pros? So in 11, my first character was a Hume, and that was on the Valfer server. Then I made a Gulka when I moved to Shiva, and in that game, what race you were mattered a lot more for the class you played back when I did. So Hume was all balanced. I didn't know what I wanted to play, so I played Hume the first time. My second character, when I moved over to Shiva server, was a Gulka because I wanted to be a Monk. I ended up not really liking Monk in 11, so then when I wanted to make a Black Mage, I made a Taru because Taru was the best option. In Final Fantasy XIV, I was originally a Rogadin, and then I changed to I got the free Fantasia from 30 days, so I changed to Ellisan just because I wanted to. It was whatever. For the Lalafell, there was someone who was trying to hold like a Lalafell I want to say cosplay, like an in-game Lalafell contest to like determine like which Lalafell had like the best sense of glamour, which I'm a terrible judge at. But someone said, hey, do you want to do this? And I said, I'll do it. And I asked, do you want me to be a Lalafell? And they said, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, if you want me to change the Lalafell, I'd at least like you to provide me with the Fantasia. They provided me with 5 Fantasias. So I changed the Lalafell. My girlfriend made the character, and then I added sideburns, and then they never held the contest. So I just have, I have a bunch of Fantasias left over. But because my girlfriend helped me design this character, or actually, she designed the whole thing, and I just gave him the mutton chops. I basically decided to keep it because she helped make it. So that's the only reason I'm a Lalafell. The reasons, there's a good reason in each why I'm that way. It's just funny that I've ended up as the short race in both games. But that is actually the last question on the forums. Thankfully, there weren't too many this week. Thank you, everyone, for... I muted the microphone instead of turning off the question off the screen. Good job, me. So thank you, everyone, for this week. Thank you to our new sponsors. Sorry for the ghetto video, but I'm now officially late for dinner, so let me run down to my reservation before I lose that. So anyway, thank you everyone for watching this week. Thank you again to our sponsors, and next week will be a normal looking episode, not in a hotel room and not with a with a bad mic. Although, to be fair, this is a great laptop. It's just that it's not a studio-grade microphone. So that's what it is. But thank you. I will see all of you fine ladies and gentlemen next week. And by the way, Monster Hunter, December 9th. Hopefully you're excited. I know I am. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, take care. All right. I'm pressing stop recording because I can't even edit this. So I'm gonna say bye one more time, and then I'm gonna press stop recording. Bye.